Today, I'm privileged and honored to host Hussein Khalid. He is the human rights activist, a lawyer, and even the CEO of Vocal Africa. He's right here with me today, and we shall be discussing so much concerning the extrajudicial killing in the country. Apart from that, also remember that you can reach us through our socials at the Kenya Times. And if you're watching this video right here on YouTube, ensure that you subscribe, like, and share. And even go ahead to just let us know your feedback through the comments section. Without so much ado, allow me now to welcome Hussein Khalid. Welcome to the Kenya Times.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Kenya Times is iconic in the country. So it's an honor for me to be here to have this discussion.
It is a privilege.
Thank you.
Let's begin now. Before we even go to the elephant in the room, that is extrajudicial killings and even matters of disappearances.
Yes.
Someone would want to know, who is this Hussein Khalid? Who is this man? Where was he born? And what inspired him to be in the field of activism? Because many people are saying it is not a walk in the park, and it's true.
Well, Hussein Khalid is Kenyan, born in Mombasa, Kenya. I'm Swahili by tribe, from Mombasa, and a few months after I was born, my father got a transfer to Nairobi. So my family moved to Nairobi, and since then we've lived in Nairobi. So I grew up in Nairobi in the semi-slums of Ngara. I schooled in Nairobi, my primary, my high school, I was in Jamhuri High School, Jamu. After that, I started working to look for money so that I can pay my fees at the law school. So I started working within communities, with the NGOs, and that's where I got introduced into this human rights movement, civil liberties and freedoms. And from then on, I told myself, as I go through law school, I will make sure that I empower myself to be able to empower the masses. And yeah, since then, that's what I've been doing. And I'm very glad to have had the opportunity to work with communities in different parts of this country, but also across the continent.
And that is where you are today.
Correct.
Yeah, and there are so many people, you know, they fear to be in the field of activism, you know, because maybe of torture and so many intimidation. How has it been to you for many years? Because you have been here for so many years. I remember when I was in primary, I used to just watch you fighting for the people, fighting for the justice. So along for that long experience, how has it been for you?
Yes, we've been here for a while, and you know, we were working with different actors. I remember even before we finished our university, we were already in the field. Because at that time, the younger generation were not as vocal as they are today. So the few of us who decided to speak up were met with resistance, particularly from the older generation. So doing this work has had its fair share of risks, of course. I've been arrested many times. I've been in police cells in different parts of this country, almost all police cells in Nairobi, beaten up by police, by goons, including last Tuesday when we were in the streets, you know. We have been threatened. We've had our phones confiscated. We've had organizations that we work with blacklisted, accounts frozen. So I would say I've seen it all. But you know, at the end of it all, if I'm asked if it is worth it, if I would like to go through that again for the sake of our country, Kenya, I would say without a doubt. I would definitely repeat that, because I believe the work that we do is helping many communities to live better lives, and is helping Kenya as a country to move forward in the right direction.
And many will ask, don't you fear for your life or even your family?
Of course I fear for my life. Every morning when you leave, including today when I left home, I told myself there's a possibility I may not come back. Because if you look at most of the stories that you hear of people who were kidnapped or people who were killed. They left their homes just like any other normal day. And out of nowhere, if you look at the case of Albert Ojwang, you know, I'm sure when he woke up in the morning, he didn't realize that those were the last few hours of his living, you know. So that's how we live every day as human rights activists. And I say this because we meet, we talk, we chat as you know, the human rights activists in different fora. And this is a fear that is within us. But what makes us move forward is the belief that there will be a better tomorrow. That we are doing this, and even if we die, our children will live better lives. And that's what keeps us moving.
Indeed. And we wish you all the best in this field.
Thank
and now also, you have talked about the families that have benefited, you know, out of your courage to just go and speak out.
Yeah.
How many families so far that you have really helped and they have gotten justice? Because we understand Kenya, how things are going every day, and many are saying justice is very rare.
Yeah.
Just an example, two families or even one that you have really fight for it and they got justice.
Well, I haven't been counting, so I can't really tell how many families, because I mean, over the last decade and a half, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of families that we've managed to work with. But you know, in giving an example, as you've correctly put it, one family that we continue to work closely with is the family of Brian Odhiambo. Brian Odhiambo is a young man who was picked by KWS officers along the Nakuru National Park border. He was picked by the officers, tortured, and then later on probably forcefully disappeared. So we've worked with this family, we've tried to push for justice, and eventually we managed to get the KWS officers charged in a court of law. And for me, I remember that day when those officers were brought, you know, before, I mean, were put in the dock to answer to the charges. The tears of joy that the mother had, the tears of joy that the wife had, knowing finally justice is prevailing. For me, that was, you know, like something else. And even though with the journey to justice is not yet complete for them, we continue to work together in the hope and in the spirit that, you know, we will be able to unearth the truth. And presently, we are trying to work with them to continue with their lives. As you know, Brian Odhiambo was like the breadwinner in the family. So we are now in the process. We've approached a few partners who've agreed to support the family in terms of initiating businesses or income generating activities that they can work on. So it's a step in the right direction, and I hope that you know, they'll be able to move forward with that. Another example of a family that you know, we've worked with in Mombasa, one of the families that were greatly affected by the Shakahola massacre. You know, the entire family was almost wiped out, and we had to find a way of helping those that were left behind, you know, to move on with their lives. So most important for them was the psychosocial support, to be able to accept what has happened and to find ways of moving forward. Because it's very, very challenging when you find that the entire family, almost the entire family, was wiped out. So these are some examples of families that we've worked with and we continue to work with in terms of, and of course not forgetting the Gen Z protests. The families of the Gen Z protests, the young men and women who were killed, you know, on June 25th, on other days when the young generation was protesting. And we continue to work with them to date to ensure that, you know, their loved ones who are our fallen comrades are remembered fondly. Yeah.
We will talk about that largely, about the Gen Z and yeah, the new alignments of how Gen Z can move forward.
Sure.
But how many times have you gone to hiding from?
Gone into hiding a couple, many times. I think during the Kibaki regime, a couple of times during the Uhuru regime. The Uhuru regime was very serious. We even had to get out of the country.
And
Even
what
now,
was the cause?
when we had to get out of the country because we were speaking out against extrajudicial killings. At that point in time, I was in Mombasa, and many youth were being shot and killed by the police in the name of countering violent extremism or terrorism. And you'd find that majority of these youth were not even arrested or taken to court. So it's the police just coming in the community and just shooting dead young men, you know. And when people make noise, they say, those are suspected terror suspects and stuff like that. And we said, if that's the case, why don't you arrest them? Just arrest them and take them to court. Why are you killing people left, right, and center? So at that time, we were very vocal against extrajudicial killings of suspects. And we insisted that if you have anything against anyone, for any matter, the law is very clear. Arrest that person, take them to court. I mean, yesterday, we saw a ruling on the television. These two suspects of the Dusit D2 attack. You know, they were sentenced to almost 30 years each. That's fantastic, because no one wants criminal or terrorists in our community. But you have to follow due process. Arrest those people, take them to court, let them be charged. If guilty, let them serve their term in jail. So at that time, we were then informed that you guys have been very vocal and you're speaking out against these extrajudicial killings, and now they're coming for you, you know, and you have to go into hiding. Otherwise, they will finish you. So it's such kinds of issues that then require us to now go into hiding. For a while, I think for 3 months, I had to be out of the country until the matter was clarified and I was able to return back.
And you were able to return back. Now, you have talked about, you know, going to exile just for safety and just to make sure you're safe. What about your family?
Yes, so in my dispensation of my duties, the thing that I fear the most is to cause harm to my family. Because for me as a person, as an individual, I've already accepted in my heart that I'm making this sacrifice. Even if I'm to die today, I have made that decision that I will not stop fighting for my country. But on the other hand, what you fear the most is to put your loved ones through all sorts of danger because of your own personal conviction. So many a times whenever I am in the front line, I know those who suffer the most, those who are scared the most are my family. Because they don't know where I am, they don't know what's going to happen to me. If anything kills me or affects me, then they will have to carry, you know, that burden. So my family then is very, very important. And in a couple of times, whenever I've had to go to a safer place, I've always tried to ensure that they are safe also. So I've had 1 or 2 times where I've insisted or asked those who want to support us to allow me to move with my family. But then you also understand that it's easier for you to be attacked when you have everyone coming with you, because then those who are after you, you become a bigger target and it becomes easier for them to reach you. So what we normally do is when I am taken away somewhere safe, then the family is also taken somewhere different but somewhere safe. So this unfortunately is the practice, and it's something that we hope with time there will be no need for such, because everyone will understand that what we are fighting for is our country.
And the other time, that is a week ago, we were together with you at the city mortuary for the results of the late Ojwang's post-mortem. Where is the case? Where has the case reached?
So presently, we have shared all the relevant evidence and information with IPOA. As you know, IPOA has the mandate to investigate police excesses. And the case of Albert Ojwang is a clear case of excessive use of force by the police. So we have given all this information to IPOA, and from what we have seen also in the media is that they are proceeding with the investigations. I think it was yesterday when the Deputy Inspector General Eliud Lagat was questioned, and we are hoping that more will be questioned. So far, from what we know is over 20 officers have been summoned at IPOA and have recorded statements. What we are hoping to see is the arraignment in court of senior police officers, including the DIG Eliud Lagat, because we believe that anyone who has been adversely mentioned or who has been involved in the death of Albert Ojwang must face the law.
Mm-hmm. And you have experienced and witnessed, such cases for a while now. How do you measure the justice system in the country, in Kenya?
In measuring the justice system in Kenya, I would say we are not yet there. Definitely, we are not at a 0 point. We have made strides in terms of improving the justice system, but we are not yet at a level where we can claim to be a country that ensures justice is done. So the duty is on us to ensure that we push the justice system to a point where each and every one of us is equal before the law. Mm-hmm. Presently, we have a situation where if you're rich, if you're powerful, or if you're a politician, the law is applied differently from the common mwananchi. Mm-hmm. And we're saying we don't want any sacred cows in this country. You break the law, you must face the full wrath of the law, whether you are a senior person in government or not. Mm-hmm. If you are a poor person at the community level, it has to apply the same across board.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking of that, and recently, on Tuesday, the Gen Z were in the street fighting for the justice of Ojwang.
Albert Ojwang, yeah.
Yeah, Albert Ojwang. And many people are saying, you activists, you are fighting for the justice of people who have gone, of the Kenyans who have been intimidated or killed or disappeared. But now when it comes to the matters of police who face injuries, who face danger, you don't come out and fight for them. And many are asking, are police are not human beings?
Of course, police are human beings, and police have rights too. Just like every other Kenyan, a police officer is a Kenyan too. The Constitution of Kenya protects the police just as the laws protect, the police. And it's very important that we recognize that, as Kenyans, we must respect the work of the police, the legal mandate given to them to offer safety and security, and for us to ensure that they operate in an environment that is fair to them also. And let's also recall that police is an institution. Mm-hmm. And in every institution, there are measures that are taken to protect its staff, to protect its officers. So as a police service, they have a number of entities within the police department that then would come forward whenever a police officer's rights are violated, whenever a police feels that, they have been pushed to the wall. But for the common mwananchi, there are no such. Mm-hmm. So we have to draw a distinction. We have to draw a line between the police and the common mwananchi. Mm-hmm. The police is given powers, to use arms to enforce the law. The citizen does not have the same powers. So whereas we acknowledge and appreciate that the police also have rights, we must also appreciate and recognize that the citizen is more vulnerable than the police. Mm-hmm. And who will speak out on behalf of the citizen? If it's the police, you have the police department, you have the police spokesperson, you have the mini cabinet secretary, you have the permanent secretary. All these individuals will be there to speak out for the police officer. Mm-hmm. But if you and I are killed, who is supposed to come forward and speak for us? That's why we're saying, yes, we recognize police have rights, but let's also speak for the common mwananchi who has no other institution to defend their rights. Mm-hmm. So this is our message, and we hope that Kenyans will understand this. And even having said that, we have a number of cases that we have taken up of police who were violated. you know, even within their own ranks. You know, people who are tortured because they stood up against maybe a certain leader within the police service. We went in. Even the most last year, but one's salary increment was as a result of work that was done by the civil society. We are the ones who pushed for better remuneration for police officers. We are the ones who pushed for more money to go towards their rent and their uniforms and stuff like that. So we do campaign for police because we believe a police service working in a conducive environment will be able to ensure better security for all of us.
And activists in Kenya mostly are seen as an anti-government. Compared to Western countries where you find even activists cooperate with government to offer solution to the people.
True.
What do you think that Kenyan government should do so that we reach to a position where activists, they can work in collaboration to ensure that Kenyans get justice and even ensure that people are helped in that country?
Yeah, I think you've spoken the truth that mainly in developing countries like Kenya, non-governmental organizations are considered anti-government. When you look at the West, maybe the developed countries, civil society are seen to be closer to the government. And what needs to be done in the developing countries like Kenya is for the government to deliver. In most of these Western countries, the government is delivering. You know, there is development, roads are there, you can see schools, better education, healthcare is there, security is there. You know, so these governments are already delivering on, you know, their mandates. That's why there is very little opposition. So the non-governmental organizations, what they do is to patch up the small pieces, but then encourage the government to do even better. While in developing countries like Kenya, we find so much corruption. You have, you know, the rule of law is completely disregarded. You have people who are dying in police cells. Imagine, in a police cell, and not any police station, Central Police Station in Nairobi. So that is like Police Station 001, where, you know, it's supposed to be the most senior, the most transparent, the most everything. Yet, a young man is beaten to death in a police cell. So you can see that we are in a situation that is completely unacceptable. That is why civil society is very loud, because we are astonished by the atrocities that are committed under the eye of this government. So that is what that is what brings the difference. And for governments, if a government responds to the people's concerns, there will be no need for opposition. You know, we were shouting from day one, I'll arrest Eliud Lagat, but they were not doing it. And up to now, they've not done it. Had they done it on day one, probably you wouldn't even have a single protest. Probably the young man, Boniface Kariuki, would not have been shot. But when a government tries to defend unscrupulous rogue police officers, we have to come out and say this is not right.
And what do you think that the government should do so that the people can get help under the collaboration of the civil society?
The primary demand that we as civil society are making to the government is very simple. Tekeleza katiba. That's it. We're not asking for special favors. We're not asking for anything other than what is provided for in the Constitution. If, for example, Article 37 of the Constitution states that every person has the right to peaceably and unarmed to protest, to demonstrate, and to picket, that is a constitutional guarantee. The Constitution has told us you can go out and protest. Why are you coming out and shooting a young man at point blank range who is merely exercising his constitutional right? A young man who is simply standing. He's not even doing anything. He's just standing. You come, you beat him up, and then you shoot him at point blank range. I mean, it's the government that is failing in its work. And all that Kenyans are asking for is, please implement the Constitution. Someone has committed a crime, someone is involved in a killing, the Constitution says the rule of law. No one is above the law, whether you are a deputy inspector general or what. So this is what we are saying. The simple thing that we want the government to do so that we can now all remain peaceful is tekeleza katiba.
Now, let's cross over now, Khalid, to the matters of the Gen Z. Gen Z movement has been seen as now like the shaping tier to the country. And recently, we saw the protest that was ongoing in the Nairobi CBD. And they were coming out to protest for the justice of Albert Ojwang. And there was another group that was sent. And it becomes like now a violent. What do you think that these kind of things, this kind of bringing groups to fight and to counter the protest, how do you think that as we go forward, this may bring?
It's very unfortunate what we witnessed in the streets of Nairobi the other day. To see goons parading in Nairobi streets with the support and backing of police officers, that is a recipe for anarchy. And if we are not careful, and if we allow this to continue, then we are setting ourselves up for a total civil collapse. What we need to do urgently is to ensure that politicians who are responsible for sending goons to the streets are held to account. You know, police have guns, and then you have goons. Guns and goons will never, ever move any country forward. Guns and goons are tantamount to encouraging anarchy, lawlessness, and, you know, all sorts of atrocities to be committed in our country. So this is a trend that must be stopped in its path. We must make sure that if anyone has a problem with any protesters, it is the police who are supposed to deal with protesters. It is not goons. And we condemn the move by the politicians to send goons to the streets, and we are telling those goons, people are out there fighting for justice for Albert Ojwang. Albert Ojwang was a young man. You as a goon have every chance and likelihood of ending up in the same police cells as Albert Ojwang. Today, people are fighting for those police cells to be safe for our young people, and you are the ones being used to counter those that are calling for peaceful engagement with police officers. Wewe ndo utachukuliwa, you will be put in those cells, and you are the person who was defending what was committed there. It's absolutely unfortunate that young men are used, they are given 1,000 and some alcohol, and you go out to fight people who are demanding justice for a fellow youth like you. That's really unfortunate. And we hope that when they sit back, when they think through what has happened, they will realize that they were used by politicians like wet napkins, and they will not allow themselves to be put in that situation again.
And we have seen a lot of disconnect between the Gen Zs and the politicians, the leaders.
The older generation.
The older generation. What do you think the older generation is lacking? Because Gen Zs are now becoming straightforward. They want this. But now the older generation is telling them, this is how we are going. So how do you see this thing? Like, what should the older generation say? Because as time moves, things are going to change. These Gen Zs are now coming to be the parents.
Yeah, it's true. I think for me, because I belong to the millennials and probably our parents who are the older generation, what was lacking mainly was courage. Courage is what was lacking in the older generations. Many of them grew up in environments where the state instilled fear in them. They could not speak against state excesses because they were told if you do that, you will be thrown in the dungeons, you will be tortured, you will, and it really happened. It wasn't threats. We have many people who, you know, were jailed, who were killed and all that stuff. The difference between that generation and this generation is that this generation you know, has that courage. This generation does not fear. And the Gen Z generation is determined, you know, to ensure they bring positive change in this country. And this is something so beautiful. I remember 10, 15 years back, even when we protested, like when we went to Parliament on the MPs protest and we occupied Parliament, you would walk in the streets and you would tell people, come, join us. And they would just watch you by the roadside. At best, they would tell you, yes, keep fighting for us. As if fighting is a preserve of a few only. Like they are not supposed to fight for themselves. And that is what we had then. What we have today with this younger generation, the Gen Zs, is they have taken the fight for a better Kenya to be their own personal fight. So it's not about activists fighting for them. It's not about lawyers fighting for them. It's not about civil society. It's each and every one of them. The lawyer in them, the doctor in them, the nurse in them, the engineer in them, the Juakali artisan. Each and every one of them believe they have a duty to protect this country and to move it forward. And that is so beautiful, if you ask me, because this is exactly what this country needs. And if we give this generation the necessary support and the, you know, what they need to move this country, I believe Kenya is ready, you know, to lead not even just the continent, but actually the whole world. So let's give the Gen Zs that opportunity, that you know, chance to change this country.
And they really deserve even to be in leadership.
Very much.
And
yeah.
And many of them, going forward, many people are saying the problem with them, they don't have leader. They say they are leaders, they are leaderless. They don't want to talk. How will they be helped? I think, what do you think, from your point of view, what should Gen Z do? Should they have a leader who represent them, or just be in unity like now, the way we see them?
I think the leaderless, tribeless, partyless strategy is extremely beautiful. And I agree that, you know, that is what they need to stick to for now. You see, the older generation are used to getting leaders, co-opting them. You've seen what has happened to ODM. You know, they're used to that, to kill movements and to kill operations that are supposed to help the country. So for me, I believe eventually they will have to get leaders, you know. But for now, I think being leaderless until we are able to realize change is working miracles in this country. At the same time, I want to encourage as many Gen Zs as possible. Please take up leadership positions. Elections are coming up. Vie for these electoral positions. It will be so beautiful once we start having Gen Zs in parliament, so that when people say reject finance bill, we have Gen Zs in parliament that will reject the finance bill. So it is very, very important, and I'm encouraging as many as possible, the Gen Zs, to take up leadership positions, vie for electoral positions, so that we can change this country.
And what can you say about 25th June?
So 25th of June, as has been said already, is a public holiday. We don't need a Kenya Gazette to announce a public holiday. For us, we consider June 25th a public holiday to commemorate our Mashujaa who were killed during the Gen Z protests. This current movement is similar to Mau Mau. We are now, you know, in the struggle to ensure the country breaks away from the shackles of extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances. And those over 60 young men and women who were killed, those are our modern day freedom fighters, and we want to remember them, to commemorate them as such. So June 25th, we are appealing to everyone out there, come and join us in the streets to remember our comrades who were killed. And if you can't come to the streets, please stay at home, because it's a public holiday that has been announced by the Gen Zs. And we will support the Gen Z's call, and we will continue to fight for justice and accountability in Kenya.
Will that day be seen as an illegal according to the government, because it has not officially announced the day to be an holiday?
It's okay. We don't need the government to announce a holiday. We can do it ourselves. There is nothing against anyone announcing a public holiday. You know, if people decide to stay at home, you can't force me to go out. You know, there is nothing illegal about that. And, you know, protests are a constitutional guarantee. The families of the murdered young men and women have themselves taken a notice to the police to tell them that on 25th we will have a protest and we'll commemorate our children who were killed. The police have acknowledged receiving the notification. So we are hoping for a very peaceful protest. We are asking thousands, hundreds of thousands of Kenyans to show up because we want a peaceful protest to remember our youth. When you come to the streets, please carry your flag. Please carry your bottle of water. Please carry your phone. Please do not carry any weapon. We are not going there to engage in any violent activity. Yeah.
So what do you now have to tell as we conclude this interview? What do you have to tell the country at large, the government, to be specific?
I think for me, my message to our government is to let go. Allow these young men to participate in democratization of our country. I believe a majority of those who are in power, they have been there for decades. It's about time we now leave the country to take new shape in the manner in which we are moving forward. We are not saying that, you know, totally throw away everything. You can be there. You can be there to advise. You can be there to guide the younger generation. But it's about time now we had MPs who are in their 20s, in their 30s. Historically, they've been in 50s and 60s and so on. So now let's give room to this younger population so that they can also play their part because they are fit to lead, as we have seen in the last 1 year or so.
I'll not be doing fair. There's a question coming here from one of our fan of the Kenya Times. She's asking, honestly, I'll just direct it to you the way it is. Honestly, I sometimes feel like some activists push people to protest more violently or more loudly, not just to make change, but to attract more donor attention and funding. Because let's be honest, the more chaotic it looks, the more the world watches. The more money flows, the more money flows in. How do we know the struggle is real for us and not for someone else's pocket?
I don't think it's true that the more chaotic, the more the world watches. I think last year's protests were largely peaceful. And we had hundreds of thousands in the streets. And many of those videos that were on TikTok were of young men and women singing and dancing. That is what went viral, where people sharing water, people laughing together. That is what actually captured the minds and interests of many out there. No one at any point in time would encourage violence at any level. Let me assure people, for those who are working on funding, whether an event is peaceful or violent, the funding is there anyway, you know, and most of the programs that we see are always peaceful programs. There is no one who goes out there to tell people, be as violent as you can. And let me also remind the public that in any institution across the world, it's the government that receives most funding from even donors. To date, we are in debt billions of shillings, and the government gets billions of shillings every year from the Western countries, from what and for all that. And if the government is doing that, it's money that is shared across board. So no one has any interest. If you find most of the activists who are out in the streets, it's money that is solicited from Kenyans themselves. You know, so I think this is usually a strategy that is used by critics to try and silence, and most of those critics at times are government-led critics, so that they silence civil society actors. But we say we will continue to be here, and we will continue doing our work, whether, you know, funding from the people of Kenya or funding from foreign agencies, as long as the objective is clear, the goal is clear, the work will continue.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Hussein Khalid, for coming to the Kenya Times.
Thank
you.
you.
Really wish you all the best in fighting for the justice for the people of Kenya.
Asante sana.
That is where we wrap up for today. Remember that if you have watched this interview here on YouTube, ensure that you subscribe, you like, and even share. And go ahead, to even comment, let us know your view concerning this interview. From here I'm Nixon Njau. See you next time.